The Ms. Marvel series on Disney Plus is pretty excellent, in my opinion. However, it definitely changes a few things from the comic version of the character. Some pretty fundamental things, I might add. So I figured that now might be a good time to explore what the differences about the MCU version of the character are from the one on the page. And maybe even speculate on how that could play into the show moving forward. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So let's not beat around the bush and touch upon the biggest change from the source material right out of the gate. Comic fans will immediately recognize that the manner in which Kamala Khan initially gets her powers quite a bit different from what we see on the page. In the show, Kamala develops her powers near the end of the first episode while at AvengerCon. During the cosplay contest, she puts on a bracelet that she found in a box at home. When she does this, a strange aura begins to emanate around her, and suddenly, she's capable of doing some rather remarkable things. From the look of it, she can create hard light constructs, kinda similar to what Green Lantern can do in the DC universe. Now, this is not at all what happened in the comics. On the page, Kamala got her powers one night after she snuck out to a party. On her way home, she was enveloped in a strange fog that caused her to pass out. When she came to, she found herself inside of an odd cocoon of sorts. Busting out, she discovered that she had developed the ability to transform her body in several ways, such as shapeshifting, which we immediately see as she takes on the form of Ms. Marvel-era Carol Danvers, and she can also stretch and enlarge herself, or embiggening, as she's rather famously known to refer to it as. Now, that fog that I mentioned was actually something that came about because of a larger event in the comics. One that I'm not really totally gonna get into, but basically at one point Thanos invaded Attilan, the Inhuman capital city. After a series of events, things came to a head when Black Bolt detonated something called a T-bomb within Earth's atmosphere, dispersing Terrigen mists all throughout the globe. The Terrigen mists, of course, being the source of most Inhuman powers. It's a substance that basically activates their latent abilities when they're subjected to them. Kind of. That's sort of an in a nutshell explanation. This fog wound up affecting people who had Inhuman DNA somewhere in their bloodline, causing a bunch of people to become something referred to as new humans. Not quite Inhumans, but certainly not normal either. And amongst them was, of course, Kamala Khan. Now, with the exception of including a cameo by Black Bolt in Multiverse of Madness, Disney and Marvel have pretty much ignored the Inhumans within the MCU since the show was cancelled. So I can understand them sort of steering clear of any association with them. Instead, the focus is being put on this bracelet, which I have theorized in the past might be one of the Kree Negabands, which are artifacts that allowed their wearers to convert mental energy into physical energy in the form of hard light constructs. Yeah, that sounds pretty on the money. Now, those bands are often associated with Captain Marvel, so there is some connection to Ms. Marvel through this weird Captain Marvel family tree that they got going on. And if the bracelet does indeed wind up being of Kree origin, that could be a pretty solid way to tie the MCU version of Kamala to Captain Marvel, as presumably Carol Danvers is still beefing with the Kree after the events of her first solo movie. So perhaps at the end of the show, she'll come down to Earth looking for the source of some Kree energy signature, only to find Kamala, setting the stage for the Marvels later on down the line. I've certainly heard crazier theories. Of course, I have to imagine that the showrunners will still try to keep her powers tied into her family in some major way, considering that Kamala Khan's relationship with her family is a pretty integral part of those early issues in the comics. Obviously, the box that she found the bracelet in was from her grandma, so there is that connection. But I can't be the only one who felt that her mother's reaction to seeing it is a bit suspicious, almost like she recognized it. And at one point, her mom offhandedly says that her side of the family is full of dreamers, just like Kamala. So maybe someone in her family had used the bracelet before. Maybe even Kamala's mom herself. Maybe her entire family has a history of being Marvels. Maybe something bad happened in the past and that's why her mom is so steadfast and stern with her. Now, as much as the show deviates from the original origins of Kamala's powers, I gotta say, it absolutely nailed a lot of the elements of the character. The MCU is cram-packed full of cool characters who quip constantly, so much so that it's borderline a meme at this point. And yet, Kamala is still allowed to be the same dorky kid that she was on the page. She's a dreamer and unapologetically awkward, while still being confident in her own way. I, for one, am really excited to see her journey towards being a full-on hero. Out of all of the Disney Plus Marvel shows, I feel like this one is showing the most promise. Like, don't get me wrong, there have been some great shows, but this one might be special. And it all comes down to the directing and the characterization of Kamala Khan. Hey there everybody, I'm John Aljets. I made this video and I want to know what you think. What do you think of the first episode of Ms. Marvel and all the changes that they made to her powers and origin? Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or go ahead and shoot me a response over on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to CBR for more great videos just like this in the future.